Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and we have reached the month of May. And oh boy, this month is gonna be pretty good. Some good videos, maybe a bad video here and there. But to start off, I'm gonna continue with my another top 13 list, and this one we're gonna be revving up into high gear as I go through some of the best duels from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's. And looking at this technology, why don't we have card games on motorcycles anymore? I know that's a big question, but why don't we? I mean, okay, to be fair, Back to the Future promised us actual hoverboards, and we don't have those, so pick and choose, ladies and gentlemen. So this would be my top 13 of the best duels of the series. And I will admit, 5Ds, when I first saw it being released, I wasn't a fan. And this was a good over 10 years ago. Somewhat more than 10 years ago, but I digress. I will not be going over the battles throughout that weren't dubbed, because I watched the episodes that were subbed, but for these videos, I like to keep it to the ones that are dubbed, because those are the ones that a majority of people watch, and yeah, some of them got cut, and the series kind of ended kind of weirdly, but overall, still good. Now let's start this. Wow, it's been a while since I've done an actual top 13. These are Gamer K's top 13 5D's duels. And why top 13? Because here at the Game Hub, only the odd can be number one. Let's get to it. Starting off the list, we have a very fun duel from the first season of the show. XIII versus Griger. And this is a turbo duel, and it's done so well during this tournament. It's done fantastic. Okay, I know I'm saying that weirdly, but the duel just works. Having XIII go up against the big machine duelist Griger with his reactors that destroy traps and spells and summoning monsters and will deal damage. Basically, his whole deck is based around using effect damage rather it is to battling. And it's done really well, especially with his Flying Fortress Skyfire. And one thing I really love about XIII is throughout the tournament, basically, until he fights either Akiza, which I believe is right after this fight, and then when he gets to Jack, he doesn't use his Stardust Dragon, which I kind of like that he didn't do that. He usually uses his warriors and his tuners in order to fight. And I do love the way he won using the big bad Nitro Warrior with Armory Arm attached in order to deal extra damage. And okay, Griger's duel cycle is like a dual chopper, and it's freaking badass. One thing I really love about the end of the duel after Griger lost is that he revealed the truth of what Goodwin and his experiments did. And he gets on his cycle where the spikes on his wheels, they weren't holograms. Oh boy. And he tries to speed up and ram into Goodwin's tower in order to get revenge for what he did to his village. This is a great to start off duel. It's done because really good, but we all know XIII was going to win, so there's not that much of a risk factor throughout the duel. Next up, we've got another XIII duel, and this one is very early in the show, which I love. XIII versus Armstrong, the head dude of the facility where all the illegal duelists go, and it's basically prison. He agrees to duel XIII for his freedom, and so that his pal isn't punished. And the fact that no cards are allowed in the prison, every single inmate gives you, say, one card each. And they're not really well balanced, but it's a whole deck of all these people who want you, say, to kick Armstrong to the curb because he's abused his power for too long. Armstrong always thought that the inmates, the minute someone was to blame, they would all gang up on each other if they're all being punished. But no, that's not how it works. And I love this duel because it's one of those duels where actually one of the only duels where the main hero gets a mishmash of cards to work with. And Yusei, being the pro that he is, uses this deck masterfully. And Armstrong's deck, being a chain deck, basically depletes the opponent's deck. Instead of mostly defeating it with life points, also depleting the cards in his deck via effects, like Iron Chain Snake, Poison Chain. Yeah, done a lot like that. And it's done pretty well, destroying all of his cards. And also, every bit of life points that gets reduced, Yusei gets shocked for the first half of the episode, for the first half of the duel. And then the second episode happens, and I can't remember, the friend basically tries to escape and resets the power so that Armstrong's dual disc will electrocute him now afterwards. And the way he wins is with one of the most obscure cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! For people who are fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that would be a trap called Blasting the Ruins. And he also does this with the ability of a monster called Rubble King, where if he has 30 or more cards in his graveyard, he can play a trap card from his hand for free. And the trap card in question is the trap. And wait, do we have a flip effect? We don't? Whatever. Blasting the Ruins. If you have 30 or more cards in your graveyard, you deal 3,000 points of damage to your opponent. And after depleting some life points, it is just perfect. Just a perfect revenge. And another thing that really gets us is even after he wins, Armstrong threatens to lock him up and saying their deal isn't valid. However, director Rex Goodwin was watching the entire duel and fires Armstrong on the spot, which I absolutely loved. That was fantastic. This duel was one of the best, one of the cooler ones, because it does deal with depleting the deck, which I think at least once a season we get a deck depletion in order to either win or almost lose. So that was always, I really love those kind of gimmicky decks in the anime. It makes it a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Makes it a little bit more, has the tension going. Going to the next one. Now this one is another good one I really love, coming at number 11. It's Jack versus Carly. And I really love this because throughout the show, and especially throughout 1 and 2, okay, technically Carly only appears in season 2, but nonetheless, she tries to get Jack out of the funk of losing the title and being a regular person. And throughout that, yeah, he starts to like her a little bit. And she is an annoying character, voiced by Ash Ketchum's original voice actor from Pokemon. Veronica something? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that. But overall, this duel is when she becomes an evil dark signer via a Silipiscu, which is a badass hummingbird. Yeah, I don't think anyone could ever say badass hummingbird in the same sentence, but yeah. And this duel is, again, done on duel runners. So, but the thing is, not so many speed spells going on in this deck, but this is an amazing deck. This is an amazing duel to see. Seeing Jack kind of hold back a little bit because it is Carly and he does somewhat like her, but also trying to make her remember all the good times with her and to give up being a dark signer. One of those is when a trap card he uses that forces her to either gain life points or inflict damage to him. Even though she knows to choose the damage, she ends up taking the cure. Which I really do. It still shows that Carly's in there until the dark forces corrupt her and try to make her actually win the fight. Yeah, that's kind of bittersweet. And always in the end, Jack does defeat her. Yeah. And it's such a sweet, sweet moment that happens afterwards. And I love it when the badass hero character always does a scene where I shed a tear. It just sucks that after that in season 3, that whole relationship shit doesn't really go anywhere. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing with your romance interests since 1990. Since 94, 7 years. Since 2001. Man, I'm really being bad at these jokes. But overall, the duel is fantastic because it puts love interest friends up against each other, which I wish they would have done more of. They didn't really do a lot of it. Next up, coming in at number 10, we've got Yusei versus Trudge Battle 3. Now, we have one battle of him in the beginning, like showcasing the turbo duel rules and the synchro and the tuning. And then we have him again using the gate blockers and Goyo Guardian. And the third time is when he takes his duel runner back after getting out of the facility. And this is a great duel. It is fantastic. Outside of just eliminating him with the same deck that he used, it's been beefed up. And now it's got a card like Discord, which will, it's tuning. It's a trap card that basically took, once he synchro summoned, it would split them into the 2 monsters that was used to synchro summon and then prevent him from synchro summoning for the next 3 turns. That alone kind of messes Yusei's strategy up big time. And I love that a police officer, technically, would use a deck like that in the synchro age in order to prevent good duelists from using all their best cards. And then at the end, he uses a trap Final Countdown. Well, okay, not the Final Countdown spell card that we all know, but this countdown trap, which by removing cards from his field, he deals up to 1,500 points of damage. So in order to stall that, Yusei uses his monster to heal him so his life points are more than what he already's got. And the way he wins by fighting against the Goyo Guardian, he uses 4 monsters to synchro summon Turbo Warrior, which is such a cool synchro monster. When it attacks, it cuts the defending monster's attack points in half. And if that wasn't enough, even though the attack points were cut in half, he still didn't have enough to win. And Trudge said, "Oh, I'll just get you next turn with my trap card." And then he activates one of the coolest traps. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, he uses Urgent Tuning during the battle in order to synchro summon. And then he uses Synchro Strike. For every monster that was used to synchro summon, it gets an additional 500 or 300 attack points. I'm pretty sure it's 500, but... And that just cinches it. And then Trudge tries to cheat by knocking into Yusei's duel runner in order to make him go off course and make him lose by default. And that's when another friend, I can't remember, because again, the friends kind of die away a little bit after the 2nd season. So it's not really important. But the point is, takes the hit in his duel runner, so Yusei can win the fight. And it is, again, one of my favorite fights in the early season. And it does really happen after the early season, right after the facility section, which only lasted like maybe 5 episodes, but you get what I'm going for. Next up, going back to the facility, because this duel, again, is so cool. The facility duel against Yusei versus Tanner. Yeah, a majority of these are going to be Yusei because he duels primarily. And in the later Yu-Gi-Oh! Seasons, the main characters don't duel as much, but they do, just not as much. And it's always good. But dueling Tanner in the facility in order to get respect around here. And he uses the old man who smuggled in a treasure deck, which, if those cards were real, I would like a deck like that. After seeing how the old man basically fumbled with the deck, and Tanner using a brute force deck, and basically a deck of traps, basically uses Yusei uses the effects of the curse against Tanner, like Crystal Skull. When you summon it, you lose 1,000 life points, but by using a spell card to deflect the damage right to Tanner. And this is one of the duels that is exceptionally well written. Like, it's one of those duels that I know they did it with the original Japanese dub, but with the English dub, they put a lot of the emphasis on respect in the facility. And obviously in this world, the only way to get it is to duel. But the way Yusei wins is phenomenal. He takes a absurd amount of damage, summoning out these weak monsters, and then at the end, it climaxes. He has 3 weak monsters, and then uses a spell card that is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Even though Tanner has 2 trap cards, Mirror Force and Trap Hole, in order to predict what he was going to do. Yusei has Crystal Skull, Ashoka Pillar, and the Cabrera Stone on the field, and then he activates the spell Triangle O, which destroys every single card on the field once you have those 3 on the field, and any effect damage you take goes directly to the opponent. And Tanner's face of when he realizes he's lost is just spectacular. And even after he loses, his men want to beat up Yusei, but Tanner shows him straight up respect for winning a duel without attacking once. And that was the beauty of the treasure deck. It's mostly an effect damage deck. You just got to know how to use all those effects and how to bounce them back to the opponent. And it is one of my favorite duels of the 5D series and of Season 1 in general. And there's so many other duels that kind of top it, but it just carries a space in my heart and memory of why 5D's is such an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh series. I'm just going to say that. And let's get to the next section, can we? Now, this one comes in Season 3. And they really have a theme with Season 3 sometimes in Yu-Gi-Oh! Some characters lose their voice actors. Chaz lost his after at the end of the Season 2. And Crow loses his original voice actor by the Season 3. And this battle is Crow versus Bolton. An old friend of his who he wanted to duel because I believe Bolton suspected that the original owner of the Blackwing deck and the Blackwing Duel Runner was hiding a very rare card, and he, I guess, needed money. And during this story, I like how the original friend of Crow was gone, and he left the Blackwing deck and the Blackbird Duel Runner, and then they duel. And I do like how Bolton's deck is somewhat similar around the Blackwings. Like, they have a name, and their names are basically a type of snow with a type of weapon. I do love that. I don't really know the full thing about the Blackwings, like Boar the Spear, Gale the Whirlwind. It's all kind of named like that. But in the episode, Crow was given information about his old friend's last duel, and the monster that was used was called Crimson Methys. I mean, in the original English, it's called Blood Methys, but they can't use the word blood because kids show. Yeah. But it is later revealed that Bolton was the one who used it. Him and the original friend got into an argument about selling out to another company, a company that builds duel runners, and they got into a fight. The duel ended, and Crimson Methys is a shadow monster or something. I don't understand how 5Ds can track all this BS that they do. But near the end of the match, Crow finally summons his ace dragon, the Black-Winged Dragon, and this thing looks like a boss. It's a combination of the Black Wings and a dragon, obviously, and it's done great. And he uses this strategy to inflict effect damage onto himself, but the Black-Winged Dragon will absorb it in exchange for decreasing life points. And he does this enough times while giving Bolton a speech about how he just wanted to sell out and make money, whereas his friend wanted to keep his friends and family good throughout this business that they were doing, the duel runner business. And that, like his dragon, he always took the hits. And then he finishes it with the effect by removing counters. He can reduce a monster's attack points to 0. And it's basically he uses the monsters that Bolton uses, their own effect strategy against him in order to increase the power of the dragon's effect. And the final attack is just beautifully done. It's a later duel in season 3. It's one that is it kind of gives plot. It kind of doesn't, but at the same time, it's Crow fighting, and Crow's a great character. End of story. Move on to the next one. Really? Okay, fine. Hang on. There we go. We got to work. This one is one of my absolute favorites. Team 5D's versus Team Unicorn. And this one is a phenomenal fight. First off, in an exhibition, kind of a train duel where Andre, the leader of Team Unicorn, fights Jack and uses basically the Beast deck that I think had a couple tuners, but they didn't really bring out their ace monsters, which would be Thunder Unicorn, Voltic Bicorn, and Lightning Tricorn. And then when they use this deck, they absolutely hammer Jack and make him lose. And then when his duel runner kind of breaks down in the middle of the track, the thing with these duels is when your opponent is down, every lap that you complete, you get an extra speed counter. And the speed counters basically go to 12. And if you have 12 and if you pass them one more time, they immediately lose. But Jack was able to push his duel runner to the line in order to pass it to Akiza. Now, Akiza does, I guess, a full episode of dueling and then gets beaten. Not before without getting Stardust Dragon out on the field right for Yusei. So this is one of the reasons I love Yusei. No matter what the situation, no matter how dire it is, he usually knows how to kick butt, and I love it. And this is fantastic because basically it's Yusei against all 3 members of Team Unicorn immediately. And then their decks go very different, from one dealing so much damage and then the second one discarding cards from the graveyard, which is fantastic. I love those types of deck where it burns your deck. And then it's Jean, the main brain of Team Unicorn, and it's just done flawlessly, this fight. Like, trying to beat Yusei with the strategy that they were going for. And then Yusei brings out Draco Equiste, which is such a badass monster. And then the strategy not working. And then it goes away. And then Jean not wanting to win. I mean, Jean has one monster. Yusei has a monster in defense mode that's weaker. And Yusei has one card in his deck I think he decks out, but he uses cards in the graveyard in order to prolong the defeat. And Jean thinks he can win by going at him full force. He wants an honorable duel, and I really love that. Even though they went for the deck out strategy, in the end, who wants to win with a deck out strategy? Technically me with my ghost tricks, but at the same time, I love the challenge. So he just wants to destroy one monster before he wins, so he attacks. And that's when Yusei activates his final card. And this is probably one of the only times in Yu-Gi-Oh! History that someone loses via reflective damage. He activates a monster, and yes, have I been showing all the cards on here? Okay, good. Hopefully I have enough data. Stronghold Guardian. This guy is an amazing card. Ditch it from your hand, and the monster on your field gains 1,500 defense points. And it does it in such a great way by deflecting the attack and Jean losing from reverse damage. And I love that. This duel was so fantastic. And it wasn't near the end of season 3. It was somewhere near the middle of the season. But this is the beginning of the tournament story. And it's done phenomenal. they defeated Jack and Akiza first, and Yusei basically defeated all 3 members of Unicorn on his own with a little help from Jack and Akiza's cards. But overall, it's a phenomenal duel, and it's one I will always remember in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's history. This one is fantastic because it's technically the last fight, but all of them are done well. It's Jack versus Fake Jack. A Fake Jack Atlas has been attacking duelists, and Jack has taken the blame because the deck is a perfect copy. And after he loses the first time, he starts to realize that his whole power strategy isn't really working. Because when they were practicing, they were trying to use a monster called Trust Guardian, which is a tuner that when it's used for a synchro summon, that monster can stay on the field after being attacked after giving up 800 attack points. And this is something that I love. Not only does Jack get to fight his own power strategy card for card, but there's also a surprise. Once in this fight, once Fake Jack has all 3 golem monsters, big piece golem, medium piece golem, small piece golem, he assumes that he's gonna go and try to summon big piece golem. Nope. He goes out and does something. What he does is he summons Flare Resonator and synchro summons the ace Red Dragon Archfiend. And then he summons Trap Eater and tunes again to summon another Red Dragon Archfiend, and then uses Synchro Magnet to tune another time in order to summon a third Red Dragon Archfiend. So go ahead, show the image. 3 Red Dragon Archfiends, which would be impossible because it's such a rare card. There would only be 1 copy of it. Because that's how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works in the show. If it's a super rare card, there's only 1 copy of it. So, yeah. And it's done so freaking badass. Jack's own Red Dragon Archfiend, which would be weakened by all the attacks, going up against 3 of its own. And then Majestic Dragon, Majestic Archfiend, Majestic Red Dragon appears and just absorbs the attack points and just creates an epic attack. And then after the defeat, they finally figure out that the Fake Jack was a robot and all the cards vanish. I'm still not 100% sure how that happened, but overall, it was done pretty good. And the real Jack Atlas, voiced by Sean Shamel, I believe. I think I'm going to have to double check that. Probably not, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Anyway, let's continue. We're near the halfway. We're near the end, ladies and gentlemen, and this is another fantastic fight from Season 2. Yusei versus Cala Talon. An old friend from the satellite turned Dark Signer with one of my favorite archetypes of 5Ds, the Infernities. Basically utilizing a 0-hand combo technique, and his monsters are downright awesome. He basically blames Yusei for putting him in the facility because kind of a misunderstanding. Callan, back in the day, there were gangs in each territory, and Callan basically wanted to take them all. And when the facility came to take him away, Yusei tried to give himself up to save Callan. But when an officer pats him on the shoulder and Callan sees that, Callan believes that Yusei sold him out. And I really love this tension that was done in 5Ds. It's not high school level BS or stuff that is just stupid reasons for being petty. He actually believed that he sold him out, his best friend. And honestly, that kind of resentment built up allowed the Dark Signers to influence Callan. And again, Callan is just a fantastic character and one of my favorite 5Ds characters in general. And the whole fight, with his 100 Eyes dragon, using the abilities of all the Infernities in his graveyard, And then his Earthbound Immortal, Kokapakapu. Holy crap, that thing is giant. And you say technically losing because his duel runner was destroyed in the last fight. Now, this one was done flawlessly. The banter, the fight, the combos, the back and forth. And just because it was old friends dueling, it worked so well. And I loved this duel for it. And the outcome was sad. And then in Season 3, Callan comes back. And he's just a freaking badass. I do wish that they didn't cut it out, the actual ending of his duel with the gunslinger dude who almost cheated. I wish that they didn't. I wish that they still kept the duel going afterwards, but they cut it in the English. And Callan is never seen again. Yeah. That was an irritating arc, but at the same time, pretty good. All right, next up. We're going back to Griger, ladies and gentlemen, and we have Griger versus Crow from Season 2, and I absolutely love this fight. For the main reason is Griger is again influenced by the Dark Signers to get revenge on Goodwin by them creating a new Dark Signer using Shakuchalua, which is the whale Earthbound Immortal. And again, he is one of my favorites. This giant whale being used with this machine deck. And after trolling the satellite a little bit, looking for Yusei or anyone of the signers, he runs into Crow, who has heard about the Dark Signers and wants to duel him himself in order to help out a little bit, so Yusei doesn't have to take all the full blunt of the fighting. And in order to convince him to do it, Crow holds out a device saying that's an electric pulse jammer that once it goes off, it's going to take out his duel runner. And Griger accepts the challenge of the duel. And then whenever a Dark Signer duel happens, the glyph of their animal, of their Nasca line, glows and creates a duel field. Twice it's done just, 3 times it's just for a duel field. For the rest of the times, they just duel inside of the Nasca line, which is awesome. And then once the duel begins, Crow throws a device saying that it's just his alarm clock to count down. He basically buffed this big-ass Griger into dueling him with like an alarm clock. That's one reason I love Crow. He's such a fun character. Even when he returns in Arc 5, he's fantastic. But I'll get to those in probably next year. So the duel doesn't really go Crow's way originally. With new cards and new effects, Griger does get his Skyfire out, and after destroying it, then comes out the Dark Synchro Monster, and then as the duel keeps going, he brings out the Earthbound Immortal, this giant-ass whale. Go ahead, show it. Monstro got nothing on this guy. And then it's kind of revealed that all the souls of the people that were in Griger's village that he blamed Goodwin for are in fact inside this giant whale. Yeah. And then he realizes that it was the Dark Signers who were the ones responsible, not Goodwin. The darkness takes over Griger to finish the duel. And Crow comes back in a big, big way. And it's fantastic. Yeah, another great duel from Season 2. And there's 3 that top it. So let's get on with the third best duel. Possibly one of the longest duels in 5D's history that isn't at the end of the game, at the end of the show. Yusei versus Primo, one of the 3 disciples, robots who use the mech emperors, who absorb synchro monsters and use monsters that are various parts. It's basically mechanical Exodia, but done better. And I do love that the Tag Force video games allow us to use the anime cards. You know what? I'm gonna find my old PSP and give it a shot again. I missed playing it. But I digress. Primo basically owns Yusei's behind in this, using his Mech Lord Emperor Weissel Infinity and all of its interchangeable parts and its upgraded parts to basically almost seal Yusei's fate. But during the aftermath of the first time he fought against the Ghost, which was just a generic robot using the Mech Lords, he has tried to learn the XIII synchro method, which is basically a new version of synchro summoning that they wanted to try. And right when you think he couldn't do it, he does it. Synchro summoning the new ace monster, Shooting Star Dragon, which is a badass. And I will admit, its ability is fantastic. During its attack, you reveal 5 cards from the top of your deck and discard them, and any tuners among them, that gives it an extra attack, basically nullifying the blocking attack of Mech Lord of Weissel Guard 3, if I'm remembering which one it is, and just taking out all the parts and then taking it out and just Primo getting destroyed. And I think this episode took place with 4 or 5 episodes about it, and it's, again, outside of like the end game of the show and the end game of season 2, it's one of the longest duels, I think, in 5Ds. Maybe in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, having the longest amount of episodes, but maybe not. But it was still a big turning point because that's one threat down, and it's just fantastic. I just wish that they could finish the actual series in English, but no, I guess some things were just not usable. Well, on to number 2. Wait, seriously? Okay, I guess I gotta do this for a while. There we go. I've got to get this thing fixed. One of the best duels in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds is the second final duel of the big tournament. Team 5Ds versus Team Ragnarok. And this one is done so well that I almost died. That I like watching it was like an adrenaline rush, and I loved it. Yusei, Crow, and Jack up against, I can't remember their names, but basically all 3 members of Team Ragnarok who all use the Nordic gods. The one who fights Jack had an agenda saying that he was paid in early in Jack's professional career to throw the match so he would look like a champion and defeat this guy no problem. And in a stunning turn of destiny, when they go up first, the cards they have in their hand are the exact same cards from that day. So they really get to see who would really win, who would have won that round. And this is something that I really love. It's basically the Beasts of the Aesir versus Jack's Monsters and Red Dragon Archfiend. And this is when he reveals Red Nova Archfiend, which would have been shown in a episode that was cut, because a lot of the episodes were cut in from the original dub. Because some of the episodes, I guess, I can see how they wouldn't really be as entertaining. But I still watched it, and they were still good. And then the Beasts tune in order to summon Thor of the Aesir. And he is one beast of a monster, I'm going to tell you. Not only can he be revived, but he can inflict effect damage. And one thing I really love is this fight ends in a draw. And then it's Crow and the Trickster dude who uses the Alpha monsters, which are like this little spirits of the Aesir, and he uses trick cards, which I really love, like the golden apples. If he takes damage, he recovers that amount of damage, and then he gets to summon a token with the combined amount of damage that he took. And Loki is one of my favorite Norse gods, and the design they went for him is so creepy, and I love it. And plus his ability is that he can reuse a trap card from the graveyard. And the one thing I love about the Lords of the Aesir is that once they're destroyed, I mean, this is in the anime, so it's not following the actual rules where they have to remove a beast or an alpha monster. But once they're destroyed, they can basically just return at the end of each turn. And the way Loki returns is just cool. Do we have a photo of how we do it? Of how he does it? He basically rips a hole in space and comes out of it, which I love. And that fight goes pretty well too. I think Crow loses, and then Yusei takes out the trickster in order to fight the main dude. And his monsters aren't really out for long until he finally uses Odin, the All-Father of the Aesir. And he's just this big, towering menace. And he also tries to use the other Nordic monsters in order to defeat Yusei, like Fenrir and Jormungand. And no matter what Yusei tries to do, they always have a counter strategy for it. And then, near the end of it all, I really, really loved how this worked. The final dude of the Ragnarok uses a trap card that on the third turn after this card's activation, it will remove the gods from the field, and Yusei will take all their combined attack points as damage. So that puts the time crunch on Yusei, and I freaking love it. The way he wins is by negating the effect by removing Shooting Star Dragon from the game, and activates a trap Zero Force, which once a card is removed from the game, it zeroes out all the monsters on the field, basically making their attack point 0, which means that they can't attack during this turn because it won't do anything. And then at the end of the phase, the horn will remove them from play, which means they can't return. And it's done in such an epic way that they just vanish, as Yusei's explaining. And the guy just realizes that he's screwed. And then Shooting Star returns and delivers one final attack. And it's such an awesome duel. Mostly because it's a revenge match for Jack and the Thor dude. And then it's a battle of similarities between Crow and the Trickster. And then Yusei going up against all three gods with the head of Ragnarok. And just outwitting him in every turn with all of his little tricks. And then basically having them get rid of the gods themselves. And it's just an epic fight. And the battle against Team Ragnarok, I think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh fans will say was one of the most epic duels in 5D's history. And honestly, in Yu-Gi-Oh in general, to be honest. I don't think I've seen a duel with so much tension and so much will they win or how are they going to win kind of thing. I mean, we all know the main hero wins, but it's the excitement of how they win that gets us. Oh, Lord. Well, there's one more. But before we get to that, I just realized I forgot to say something. I know this video has nothing to do with what today is, but happy May the 4th be with you guys. Yeah, I don't have much Star Wars stuff to do, so I just decided, yeah, why not? On to number 1. The number 1 duel for 5Ds goes to the end of Season 2. Yusei, Jack, and Crow against Rex Goodwin. After defeating the final Dark Signer, they are magically teleported to Goodwin's Manor, where the temple thing is, and Rex reveals a shocking truth. Right before Yusei fought his brother Roman, who had the spider Earthbound Immortal, Rex duels his older brother, and purposefully loses so that he himself can become a dark signer. I know that sounds very, very disturbing. And not only that, but his arm has been in a jar all this time with the dragon's head symbol of the crimson dragon. And oh dear Lord, it is enough to make you weirded out. And then on his back is a giant ass condor symbol on his back. So he's a dark signer and an actual signer. And once he puts his arm back on, because he removes his cybernetic arm, he becomes all buff. You know, all that dark energy is evidently turns you into All Might. And then he, while at the temple, he takes all the other signer signs to create the Crimson Dragon on him and challenges one final duel against the three along the Nasca line, the Nasca line of the Condor. And this is an amazing turbo duel, and it's done in such a badass way. Not to mention his monsters using the sun, influencing his light and dark side, using Sun Dragon Inti and Moon Dragon Quelia. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I just love doing it for some reason. But these monsters work in tangent. Destroy the sun, you take damage. It summons the moon, defeat the moon, and he gains life points, and it brings back the sun. So they had to come up with an alternate strategy in order to just get rid of them entirely. And then he summons his earthbound Nasca, which is the great condor. And I'm just gonna move. Look at this beast. Yep. And it's weird how it has one attack point, which is weird. I guess the attack will destroy them immediately, if I'm recalling right. But God, does it not go epic, from Crow and Jack and Yusei using their strategies together and trying to take down Goodwin in each of their own right, but also playing into the other's hands by helping out. It's just done fantastic. And at the end of it, Yusei gets all the signer symbols back on his own back in order to claim Majestic Star Dragon to defeat Nasca and basically end Goodwin's schemes. And it was just... I know I praise the battle against Team Ragnarok so much, but overall, having another fight that has the three main heroes going up against one great evil, and it's just so epic, and it's just so intense. It's just another beautiful ending of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's of Season 2, and it made what Season 3 was even epicer. So if you think about it, the epic fight against Goodwin at the end is what paved the way for the fight against Team Ragnarok to be as epic. So yeah, you got to go with what made the epic fight epic. And that's what this duel did. It made all the future badass duels in 5Ds what it was. I really wish we could have gotten an English fight with Zone, because that would have been fantastic, but we didn't get that far, sadly. And that is my top 13 for 5Ds, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and any Yu-Gi-Oh fans out there, thank you for logging in with me. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And next week, I can't. I really don't want to do next week, because for once in a long time, it's a really bad game. Is it as bad as I think? Yeah. Join me next week as we go into a game that's an indie game that should have stayed under the skin. This is Gamer K, logging out.